go. Let's just jump right into it. So,
Cool.
your new album, Crash of Life, how would you describe it?
Well, I mean, it's a classic rock record with the 2023 spin. It's got the, modern recording and as much as it's inspired by the 70s and 80s and even a little bit of 90s, it sounds very 2023. Sounds like the hard rockers of 2023. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would say it's a pretty diverse record in terms of its influences, but it's all hard rock.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite songs would have to be Find a Way. That one's just like a really good rocker. But there's a lot of different flavors on the album. Like you said, there's the rockers, there's also the ballads. So like tell me a little bit more about that, the different styles on the album.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's some stuff that's, got some Zeppelin influence on it at times, and there's stuff that even has some AC/DC influence. The traditional kind of Dio influence, which has been a lot of the core of the sound of this recording project. And I would say at times I mean, there's one of the ballads kind of has R&B-ish changes to it. Uh, I'd say there's other influences that poke their head through that I could cite at times, like, as heavy as like Metallica to Iron Maiden, um, to stuff that's maybe more like Dokken or Queensryche. So there's a lot of influences in there, but most of those are, the hard rock scene.
Yeah, I noticed that, and another one of my favorites is um, Right for Me. I believe that's what it's called. It has like a bluesy riff to it. I
Yeah,
noticed.
that was for me, that was written on an acoustic guitar, open tuning, kind of thinking Jimmy Page more than anything. And when it comes time to make something like that cohesive and fit on a record, you fatten it up with power chords to kind of toughen it up so it kind of matches the other stuff a bit more. So it's not just totally all over the place, but very Zeppelin influence for me, that one. Although the chorus is quite a bit poppier. So, like that kind of pop rock influence comes through me too at times.
I like it. Blending two different styles together.
Yeah.
Uh, their new vocalist, Girish, forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Girish Pradhan? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit different from Russell Allen. So, what does he bring to the band?
I'd say, like it's a youthful energy and a lot of versatility, man. He's a real chameleon, he's able to, in his band, he's really screaming a lot, it sounds like kind of like early Skid Row, a lot of the scream and the high notes and whatnot. And uh, I think, with this, my thought was, well, Russell's been a little bit more like Ronnie James Dio to like Paul Rogers or Lou Graham on the softer side. So I just needed to make sure Girish could like kind of just sing a song too sometimes without being like, check out the high note, that kind of thing. And he absolutely can. So I'd say just his versatility, super positive guy, his willingness to participate in the promotion is something different than I had with Russell, to make videos. That's something that Russell wasn't willing to do. And I'd say just, like a lot of skill. I mean, he's really a rising star. I think his band is going to get a lot of attention as these albums come out, him singing with me and him singing with the End Machine. And so I think his star is definitely on the rise. He's a great talent.
Would you ever consider like maybe touring together, possibly?
Yeah, I would love that. I think it's a matter of how all the parts fit together. I think Vinny Appice would be a big part of that for live shows because you could play some Dio or some Black Sabbath with having some validity to it, and play some Whitesnake with a bit of validity to it as I'm still a member of the band. And that helps when you're playing a set of new music to be able to mix in some stuff that people are like, all right, you crank out Still of the Night for them or something like that with Vinny playing drums, or, do Mob Rules or something like that. It kind of, live keeps people like, all right, cool, I know this one. And then you play the new stuff.
Yeah, what a lineup! What a lineup this group has. Like Vinny Appice and Jeff Scott Soto, backing vocals. Uh, yeah. Do you have a particular song or like a couple of songs that you look forward to playing live?
Um, Not in particular. I mean, I'm just like more excited about the album being released at this point in time more than anything. I think that this is an interesting one where like it didn't necessarily have the couple past albums had those kind of standout pop tracks, the like poppier courses that were going to be the singles, like Until I Left You on the first record and Hard to Say Goodbye on the second record. And then this one is more like just kind of, I feel like the bar is higher, that like all the songs are really good, but there was no like, well, this is obviously the single kind of thing. So I just decided, like, along with Frontiers, let's go with one of the really heavy ones and let's go with one of the ballads, because I think some of the ballads on this one are maybe the singles, but you don't necessarily want your first single off an album to be a ballad. So I think Over You is another ballad on here that people think is a really good song. It's just, to necessarily have your first album, your debut off the new record to be a ballad, people would be like, where's the heavy song? So we gave them Far Too Deep for that first single, kind of really, really the heavier side of the record.
Can you go like more into detail about what that process is like picking out the singles for the album?
I mean, it was pretty brief this time. I've been working with Frontiers a lot. They kind of left it up to me. And, there's Everybody Knows Everything is another one that they thought might make a good heavy single. So that was the only debate, was Everybody Knows Everything versus Far Too Deep. And I voted for Far Too Deep because I thought it might make for a more interesting video. And maybe it was just a touch heavier, maybe guitar solos a little bit longer, things like that. And let's go with that instead of Everybody Knows Everything. And then the ballads, the debate was really over Torn Into Lies, which kind of veers off in a different territory a little bit, versus Over You, and just kind of opted for Torn Into Lies. So, I mean, it was really up to me in the end. I've been working with those guys. They really gave me artistic freedom on the record and let me just kind of do what I wanted. So,
Yeah, I think that's really important for an artist to be able to have a lot of control over the music that they release, because, well, I don't want to say sell out, but like, when you're an artist, you want to be able to release the music that you want to release. You don't want other people telling you what to do. You want to write the music that you want to make.
I mean, that's the whole idea of Joel Hoekstra's 13 for me. Obviously I'm a part of other projects right now with Revolution Saints and Iconic, and obviously I'm a member of Whitesnake and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. But you played various roles in degrees of importance in what the music is that's being written or what it's going to sound like. And so for me, it just gives me an opportunity to, I guess, be the boss for a minute, which is fine. I'm fine with all the other stuff too. I don't need to be the boss, but like, it also can be kind of fun for, to have an opportunity to do it. So, that's really what these are about. I do all the writing, write the lyrics and the vocal melodies and the guitar riffs and everything. So in terms of the concepts or, the lyrics, it's all my stuff. And so that is definitely the idea of these, is that this be my music.
Yeah. So there's obviously a difference between writing for Whitesnake and for your own project, Joel Hoekstra's 13, because you get to write from your point of view, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, with writing with David, on Flesh and Blood in particular, was a lot of completing ideas that he had. David would have an idea for a song, and so he would say, "Where would you go from there?" And you just try to immediately on the spot come up with something that works and grabs his fancy. But it's riffs or like a bed for him to sing on or over, rather than saying, why don't you sing this? Like that's David's department with Whitesnake, and rightfully so. David writes the lyrics and sings the vocal melodies. So with something like this, like what you're hearing when you hear Girish singing on the new record, like I've basically sung the entire album, just kind of not nearly as good as him. And then he listens to what I've sung and he kind of recreates it and possibly puts his own spin on it at times, but a lot of it is, it's all ideas that were in my head. But I would like to, rather than satisfy my own ego and sing like okay on the album, have a great singer.
Would you say there's a little bit more growth on this album compared to the previous album?
It's really hard to say. It's just apples and oranges. I'm really proud of the other ones that I've done too, Dying to Live and Running Games. I think there's good music on them. I think that if I had to gauge the way it runs with songs on this, that everything stays slightly higher the whole way, and there's no like standout single. That everything is just kind of like a good album on this. This is like everything is just like kind of a good album track. I feel like through this whole record, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I mean the whole album could have been released as singles, but I guess it all depends on the listener and what.
Yeah, what your definition of a single is. Like I said, those other ones were more like really hooky melodic choruses, but not everybody digs that. Sometimes they're like, well, this isn't heavy. They want like heavier stuff, and so like your guess is as good as mine with that stuff too. Sometimes you give them like a really hooky melodic chorus, and people are like, this is just bubble gum, and they want heavy, and then you give them heavy, and then they complain that there's not enough melody, or it's very hard to satisfy every single human being with any music. So I don't worry about it too much. I just do like it's more about like writing what comes across, like what my ideas are in that moment, and then realizing that's like what it's going to be. It's an artistic statement from this period of time.
Where do you get your inspiration from in terms of like songwriting?
All over the place, just like I would say a lot of just the bands that I grew up with, which, I've got a pretty diverse set of tastes of likes, So I'd say, like I said, some of the stuff I'm citing, I'm telling you, is like 70s influence, with the Zeppelin idea, Zeppelin-ish influenced ideas, and then there's times where it's more straight up 80s influence, and then even some of it has grungier riffs, like Far Too Deep, but definitely has some of that drop tune, riffing on it. That's almost more 90s in a sense at times. Although I would not say that the singing or the melodies are very 90s. So, I just roll with what comes across naturally, and just try to, realize that that's what's coming out of me and that's what's natural.
But everyone located in different parts of the world, like because Girish, he's in India, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was it a little bit difficult putting together the album and getting everyone's parts together?
No, I'd say when it comes to the production end of things, I'm pretty low key. It just kind of I might micromanage the writing end of things on these because that's really important to me that I write everything on these records. But because I want it to be my music. But when it comes to how everybody plays on it, I just kind of leave them alone and let them do their thing. So everybody does it at their home studio and they get to play like themselves and put their artistic stamp on it that way and feel happy and feel like they did something that they're happy with, not just like, Joel told me what to play the whole time. I wouldn't want to do that to anybody. I wouldn't want to do that on somebody else's album, so I don't do it to them, And so every once in a while I'll say, hey, would you mind just this one section playing this kind of, part or whatever, but very rarely. for the most part, everything everybody sends me, I'm like, okay, cool, thank you. It sounds great.
Those are people you collaborate with a lot of people throughout the years. Everyone from like Shared, you even formed with Constantine Maruis, you've formed with Night Ranger. Is there an artist that you've always wanted to collaborate with, but the schedules haven't quite aligned yet?
No, not necessarily. I just kind of work hard at every turn and do the best I can with every musical situation, and then just kind of see where life guides me, and then you figure that's where you're meant to be. you know. So there have been some surprises, like ending up on Broadway with Rock of Ages is not something I would have envisioned when I was a kid, starting with guitar, or playing with Cher. You mentioned the Cher gig, and that's like, those are definitely things that happened that were a little more like out of left field. But I've also just kind of said yes to a lot of things that people will be surprised about over the years, from playing in oldies bands, playing in the Turtles, playing Happy Together, and playing in Big Brother and the Holding Company, and being a part of acid jazz bands and hip hop bands. And that's all kind of stuff that's really allowed me to grow as a musician and just stay open minded. And then if you just work hard at everything, and then life just has a funny way of putting you where you belong.
I mean, every experience is valuable. It depends.
Absolutely. The more you play your instrument, the better you get at it. That's the bottom line.
I mean, looking through, doing a lot of research on you for this interview, I've noticed your work ethic. You have a really strong work ethic, and it's helped you get you where you are today. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only way I know how to get it done. So I definitely just try to work hard at everything I'm doing and work hard every day, really, for the most part. I don't really take days off. I just kind of continue to work. Whether right now, my year looks a lot like playing acoustic gigs with Brandon Gibbs and playing with Broadway's Rock of Ages band and teaching virtually. Obviously, also on April 21st, just released Eagle Flight from Revolution Saints. So joining that project, turned in the riffs, recorded the next Revolution Saints record, turned in the riffs for the next iconic record, which is my Whitesnake bandmate Tommy Aldridge and Michael Sweet and Nathan James and Marco Mendoza. So getting ready to do that, and getting ready to do a gig in Romania with some guys that they're calling us the Gods of Rock or whatever, and doing that, and going to be a part of a guitar gig in Geneva, Switzerland in July. Whether it's prepping for sets or recording albums or teaching, the guitar is usually in my hands like a good 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, something like that. And so that coupled with trying to get the word out like we're doing right now, doing interviews and doing social media, etc. It's kind of the only way I know how to do things is just work at it. And you know what, if it goes south, it goes south, but at least you can say you worked at it and tried your best. And, the only thing I wouldn't be able to live with is that oh man, I should have done more.
Yeah, and so looks like the rest of the year you're gonna be pretty busy then. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got Trans-Siberian Orchestra coming November, December. Brandon Gibbs and we already did a 2-week run in the UK, and I think we're working on trying to get Europe done too this year, for a similar length run. And so between that and the Rock of Ages band and those other gigs I mentioned, doing sessions and teaching, and obviously, this record's really important to me. This is like my music too. So you throw that in there. This is really like my moment to make an artistic statement. So with Crash of Life coming out June 16. So, yeah, there's a lot on my plate, but I just try to keep going. I've been counseling a lot at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp too. I've got another one of those coming up. So I like to have a full dance card. That way I know I'm on my guitar. It keeps me on it and keeps me working hard. And that's the only way I know how to do it. I don't really know how to do it from sitting around complaining, going, I wish I was doing this. I wish I was doing that. You just kind of got to get out there and do stuff. And and life has a way of solving those things for you.
I mean, if you have good habits, might as well keep up with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lesson to be learned there that like work creates work. The more you get out and actually do work with music, and on top of that, it just makes you a better musician. Like I was saying a couple minutes ago, there's part of it that's like just for that. It's like, well, if I'm playing my guitar that much, I'm bound to get better, right? I mean, like I'm not gonna like go like, gosh, I'm rusty, I stink, like if I'm playing eight hours a day every day or on it and working at it. So, just trying to find things that fit where like I can at the end of the day go, did I have fun doing it? Does it make monetary sense? Like, did I make money doing it? And like, am I moving? Is there potential to move forward with things with that? So, yeah.
Do you have any like leftover songs from the Crash of Life sessions that you could possibly use for future Joel Hoekstra 13 albums?
Yeah. There's leftover stuff. There's stuff on Crash of Life that was like leftover from other writing sessions that I thought that might fit on this record, and that's always been the case. All three of the records have had stuff that have kicked around where I was like, that riff is like 5 years old, but I'm going to put it on this record. So, yeah, I mean, that happens. And then other things I tend to be very designated for, like the stuff I've done for Iconic has been like very systematic. Like every day I'm going to record like one idea. And I sit down and I get the one idea and get that to Michael Sweet. And to Michael arranges the riffs and then gives those to Nathan James and Alessandro to write the lyrics and the vocal melodies.
Yeah, well, congrats on all your hard work so far. And June, Crash of Life comes out June 16th, is that right?
June 16th. Yep.
Awesome. Well, again, Joel, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your day for our interview.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.